Gaeilge Weekly is brought to you by Learn Irish Online. For way more shows, videos, podcasts, and courses for learning the language, head to learnirishonline.com or patreon.com/learnirishonline.
You've been the best of times, you walk me through my darkest days. Why must I turn around? I ask myself. This just ain't fair, so hard to bear. I'm not really sure these days. You walk me, you don't me.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, mods and wa, Sononoma. Welcome back to Gaeilge Weekly, Fátarás Wig, Gaeilge Weekly, this week on Céadaoin. So, and I'm very, very happy to my long sauce that you're with me for the next half hour, probably a bit longer even, because I've got lots to say this week. Go to Lumsan so. Tá tú is inis, níl sagam an bhfuil tú an tocht a wahoo. Can you feel the heat? But I certainly can, so I hope you can't hear my fan in the background. Tá sulagam nach bhfuil tú an my fan a chostal. So chulra. But welcome to the show and thank you very much for listening. As always, gurmí na mágah as a bheith éisteacht mar is gnách. This week on the show, going to be speaking a little bit about what I got up to over the weekend, because I was on a bit of a trip. Bhí mé Thuras an Ceisteanna, so tá mé an láirt Bígí faoi sin, céanáis rud around me ag déanú, what type of thing was I doing, where was I, what did I get up to, who was I with, and so on. Céhí lumsa agus céanáis rud around me ag déanú, chuna sa bhí sé agus mar sinja. But firstly, hope you're all doing well and hope you're enjoying the week or the weekend if you're listening a few days later. Dús tásúlam gfuil an Céadaoin ag dul go maith. Tíobh nó bid an deir seachtaine más rud é go bhfuil sibh éisteacht cúpla lá níos déine. So I think I mentioned it towards the end of the podcast last week. Ceapam gur luí me é thart dhearra an fud craile an Céadaoin sa catsa. But for the last few months, I've been looking forward to the weekends just gone. Le cúpla mí nús bhí méid tanú go mór leis an deir seachtaine atá díreach tar éis chríochnú, because it was my next race, my next half marathon. So I tried to do maybe 5 or 6 races during the year. It's in a marathon beds for 2, no sé rás a dhéanamh I ré na bliana. Now, listen, I'm not a professional runner by any means. Ní méid déanamh an rud so I mód garnúil ar churba. I'm not doing it in a professional way. But I do like running. I try to train a good bit, try to go running maybe 3 times a week, maybe 4, even if I'm getting ready for a race. Basically, Cara or I ré na seachtaine má tá mé ag éirí ré le haidh rás, má tá mé ag olbhú le haidh rás if I'm preparing for a race. But no, I like the buzz of it. I like the preparation for it. I like having something to train for. Smatlam rud aigan a bheith agam hun, a bheith train all le haidh an rud sin. But I think more than that, ceapan beidir níos mó ná sin, what I really enjoy is just getting to go to different places and spending a weekend somewhere, normally with someone, to go le duine aigan na cathú deir seachtaine áit aigan. So, for example, booking in for a half marathon in Valencia towards the end. I'm not, this is just an example. Sample on Thuaidh Steve. Booking in for a half marathon in Valencia, and it's on the Saturday in October. And so you go up on the Friday on the train, spend all the Friday there, Saturday, and then come back Sunday afternoon, Saturday, Sonona, Downach. And that's really what I did this past weekend. Sin really cad around me on deir seachtaine seo. So, long-term listeners, I probably mentioned this quite a bit, to be honest, on the podcast. Be make large for so gominnic an bud craile, so maybe you don't have to be listening too often or that far back. Beidir ní chaithí tú a bheith ag éiste gach seachtain nó chomhminic sin nó I wad ó hin chun iste bheith agat faoi seo to know about this. But I used to live in Pamplona. So in 2021, I did my Erasmus in Pamplona. It's not really how I moved to Spain in the first place, but it's part of the story. It's a long story, how I ended up in Spain. Céadaoin tá ann maidir le cin chuid. A dairí sé is tócha bhfuil mé inis I mo chónaí sa Spáin agus cin chuid a bhog mé go dtí an Spáin. But Pamplona and my Erasmus there was definitely part of it in the experience I had. And I've been back once for like an afternoon, I think 2 years ago when I was sharing the Camino, hart ar gábhlín ó hin nervhí me ag tosú gom leis céil an Camino. I was there for maybe an afternoon. I was going from Barcelona to the French border. If you make dul of Barcelona, go Turas na Franca, and I had to switch there briefly in Pamplona. So I had a few hours in between one train getting in and the other bus leaving. The cúpla or agam idir an train ag sreacu Pamplona agus an sin ag bus ag fágáil ó not Céadaoin ó Pamplona. So bhí sean sagam siúil timpeall. That was a bit trippy. I think with these things, it's always the first time you go back, it's a bit weird. Ceapam leis na rudí seo. I gcónaí tá sé bucnaí eisteacht an chéadóir a haon tú arás. Even if I think back, my first kind of stint in Spain when I went to Barcelona for my internship, nuair thuaidh me go Barcelona in 2020, I gábhils fiche. So just before the Erasmus Zurich Riv on Erasmus, I did 5 months in Barcelona, rinne me cúig bhí in Barcelona, and then I came back obviously at Christmas, tháinig me rast ar an nói ag an nullag, and it was so trippy to be back, even only after 5 months, fiú tar éis cúig bhí agus ní an ada é sin. That's not a very long time now. I'd easily go 5 months without being at home now, and I probably do pretty much every year between April and September normally, taking ná idir mi Aibran agus mi bhealfóver déanam é sin. But I came back for 5 months. It was so trippy being back. It was kind of like a bit of a dream. Bhí sig sulla bring loads buganí. But with Pamplona, and I think a lot of those situations, it's the same. The first time you go back, it's a bit trippy. But being back this weekend, so spoiler, although I mentioned that last week, the half marathon was in Pamplona. Bhí an lap marathon in Pamplona in the north of Spain. So for anyone who doesn't know the geography of Spain, well, here in Seville, I'm an hour from the Portuguese border, and about 2 hours from Gibraltar or Tarifa, the kind of most southern points of the peninsula. So hart there or clig o Huron no ports and Gaeilge, agus hart there ga or clig on pointse is mo o yes on seo sa Iberian Peninsula, which is Gibraltar, Andorra, Portugal and Spain put together. Andorra, Gibraltar and Spain, agus an forts and Gaeilge churtha le chéile, depending on your political views. Brandsay. Is tócha an dearchan nó an barrel politúla atá ad, but again, we won't get into that in one son. Probably most people listening to this podcast anyway would be of a similar mindset in terms of different things with Gibraltar and so on. But anyway, that's the story for another day. Sin scale lahai la ella. So you're basically going across the country. You know, thought to trasnu na tíortha an sin, going from Seville up to Pamplona, because Pamplona is about an hour away, even less probably from the French border, Nílteach or clig o Huron na Franca, kind of on the west side of the French border, so not over by Barcelona, but rather over towards, I think, is it Bayonne or Brits? I think Brits is over there near the border up by San Sebastian. So in Acla San Sebastian agus Brits on Turan. So Friday, got the train up on Iana for me on train, who's brilliant train service here. Quite expensive, the trains in Spain, certainly if you're going from city to city. Maltatug dul o chahar one, go chahar ella. If you're going within a city, like metro or even just satellite kind of commuter trains, they're normally fine. Nís idir chosach an sin, maltatug just like dulasteach, galorna cahrach o better brúach valia from a kind of suburb or anything like that. But going from Seville to Madrid or Cordoba to Valencia or Barcelona to Pamplona, Marhampla, it normally is expensive, and it depends massively on when you book it. So unlike in Ireland where the prices are fixed, in air and ton of price in a sucker you have really, agus níl si ton afru. I think maybe they go up €1 or two if you book them a bit later. In Spain, it's kind of even though it's a public, is that the right word? A state body, let's say, cólacht buinte leis an rialtas. Cig will say mar cólacht buinte leis an rialtas, even though it is a company kind of connected to the government or run by the government, the pricing is pretty much like anything else. If there's more demand, the price will go up, and the later you leave it, like, flights or anything, it'll see Rodaigan, because the shin ma ágan tú éigetí an nó méidearnach, it'll be quite expensive. So got the train, again, expensive, but it was it's good service, 4 hours direct. You used to have to go to Madrid if you're going anywhere to north from here, from Seville. Riversub, it's a Séadaoin, no blin o hin, agus Riversin Colma. Mas Rodai go out to dul ó Seville go éonáit an sin sa túisceart, so going to Barcelona or going to Zaragoza, you'd have to connect to Madrid and change train, or at the very least it stopped in Madrid. Now it just goes direct to Barcelona. Well, direct. It doesn't stop in Madrid, so it's the same train. It stops in Córdoba, Ciudad Real, agus an sin stopping sé Covma is Zaragoza, so it stops in those three cities. So got the train up Zaragoza, only 4 hours, basically went across the whole country, and Spain is a lot bigger than Ireland, and you'd barely be able to do that in Ireland to get a train from Cork to Belfast or something. Well, there's no train from Cork to Belfast, and even if you connected, it would take you a lot longer than 4 hours. Cínta go dógadh sé ó bhád níos mó ná ceithre óra. But got there, and I was excited, probably, as I mentioned there, excited to just get away for the weekend and do something different and, you know, be eating out a bit more. Like always, of course, when you go to another place, you're eating out, you're having a drink, the drink situation till after the rice beer and fannat, you know, good eat the rice on a Ross on couple of duck of agam. But to see a good friend of mine who lives in Zaragoza with me as well, or with me, who lives in Zaragoza up there by himself, tá in a chónaí who san sin is Zaragoza leis féin, that I hadn't seen in a few months. I met him last year, an Irish friend. So I went there, I met him. Well, I had a few hours by myself in the city, bhí cúpla ór chloig lum féin sa chathair dús, and then he was finished work about 4 and met me at 5. Chríochnaí session an obair hart a chathair chlog agus bhúil sé lum hart a chuig. And he was nice enough to show me around and tell me a few different things about the city. Like one thing, well, I say this is an interesting thing, but I can't even remember the full facts. But the name of Zaragoza, itself, comes from Julius Caesar. That Julius Caesar in, where is it here? Okay, I didn't have internet for the first 2 versions of the podcast. Ní rá idirlíon agam don Chéadaoin. It's in Thuaidh, so I didn't have a chance to actually read this out. So this is the only version which will have the proper explanation. The name Zaragoza originates from the Roman name Caesar Augusta. Now, who's that? That, of course, is Julius Caesar, which was given to the city in the 1st century AD by Emperor Augustus. So that's Julius Caesar. Over time, this evolved through Arabic influence as Saragossa during the Al-Andalus period, then to Saragossa with C's in the medieval era, and finally to the modern Spanish Zaragoza with the Z and the slightly lisp pronunciation that I can't fully do, but I'm getting better at it. It takes a lot of years here to be able to do that. It's like the word for happy, you might know. You might think it's feliz, but really it's feliz. But again, I can't do it that good. Barcelona and all that. But anyway, a story for a different day. If I ever start a 4th version of the podcast, má hosnaíam Gnáthleagan san fudcréile lá éigean, maybe half in Spanish, lá trí Spanish, agus lá an sin as Gaeilge. So he was nice enough to show me around. Cool city, like a lot of those kind of mid-range cities. Although Zaragoza is actually quite big. Zaragoza soch mór. Ceapan gohfuil sé mar an chuú nó cabhrú chathair mó sa Spáin. It's like the 4th or 5th biggest city in Spain. It's basically the same population on Déanra céine mar Seville. And I was surprised by that for sure. And there's definitely a lot less things to do there, a lot less things to see. Gan out tá bhád níos lú rudí an sin le feicáil, a bhád níos lú rudí an sin le déanú, and a lot less tourism. I didn't see much tourism at all. Níach mé mór an thosaitheoirí ar churbe. But it was still nice, and the basilica there is really cool. It's by far the main thing, and the square around the basilica, like a lot of European cities, I guess, because a lán cathaircha timpeall na Europa. But that was nice pleasant city, probably like Córdoba or some of those that doesn't have a whole lot going on, but spend a day or two, really nice. And up in the north as well, things are a small bit more polished. They're really beagly níos size polished in real fuckle sin as Gaeilge. And beagly níos forbarthair is stoke a bit more developed as well. I mean, listen, things are developed here. Let's not, it's not like we're at war down here or there's huge amounts of poverty, well, alán bochtan na snoin or the machine compared to other places a gcomhpháirtíocht lá áit na eile. But that's definitely a difference. You see it initially as well on a much bigger level. Feictar level ó bhád níos mó é. San idal ceapam idir an túisceart agus an deisceart in between the north and the south, and the differences, the difficulty idir an túisceart agus an deisceart. It's not on the same level here for sure. Níl sé ar an level céanna an so Spáin, but still there's a difference. Like a good example is if you get a coffee here in Seville, mine to cafe and so is Seville. It's literally a little glass and it's a cafe con leche, or whatever you want, cafe solo, which is an espresso. And that's it. There's no... I've kept on forgetting the word for this in English. There's a little phrase in English, like there's no... Not bows and arrows. There's no... whatever, bows and decorations or anything special on. Níl masúcháin no ein rud speisialta ach an sin. But then if you go up to north, obviously completely depends. If you're in the city, out in the countryside, mátatu Gláthar, mátatu almofuin Thuaidh, what city exactly, big difference in Barcelona and Galicia, which are both in north, etc., all the caveats you would like to check. But the caveats go there, all to your tógáil. But in general, you're a lot more likely to get it in a cup with a little kind of, more like in Ireland, like a little, not the same size as the ones in Ireland. Jesus, Isa Christ, on maids in the keen in Éireann, the size of the ones in Ireland is ridiculous. The chredza, the coffees. But up north, you're a bit more likely, and I'm not talking about Belfast or Jerry, I'm talking about the north of Spain, the Miglarts for Belfast, no Dira, the Miglarts for Huskart in Spain. You're a lot likely to get kind of the brisket thing and a bit of cream on top, maybe even a bit of, when they do the love heart or some type of logo in the middle of it. So running still a cree on sin or war on cafe, more likely. And in general with food and with drink, there's a bit more panache to it, as me and my friend were joking through the weekends. Tá bígí níos bon panache, agus bígí níos galanta, is still a bit more fancy, though bougie, orintha. But it's not a massive difference. I'm just saying a bit more in general in the north. Certainly in Italy, you'd see a bigger difference between the two sides. So nidal factor zifrucht o wad níos mó idir an dáhéh idir an dá áit an thuaisceart agus an deisceart. So anyway, was up in Zaragoza. That was nice to see another city ticked off the list and another province ticked off the list, or comunidad as they call them here. So while we have 32 in Ireland, they have 17 here. I won't really call them counties or provinces. They're comunidades autónomos, or autonomas, feminine, I guess, in Spanish. So autonomous communities. And it's actually amazing. Again, very much a story for a different day. Go note scale ella, like law ella, but the amount of power each autonomous region, so Catalonia, Aragon, the Madrid region, the Valencia region, and the Lucia, where I am now, the Basque Country, the amount of power on maids cuachta atá acub that they have. Like during COVID, for example, there was a lot of times where in the Basque Country you couldn't be in a restaurant past 6 p.m. Who's sunshine it's here in the Moscow, ni rawat to an a vet in Milan egg a shake lug, no trace shake lug, and same time nightclubs were open until 2 down here in Andalusia. Bhín the club an iha oscailsa an so go dtí a dó clug in Andalusia. So it was a good example, and with loads of different rules. One thing might be legal in one community, but then might be completely illegal, or just one government party might be in charge of one community, but then another government party in a different place. So it's interesting actually compared to at home, where the local governments have no real power. Gcomhpháirtíocht le ras in Éireann na rialtais áitsúla ní léinn cuacht acu an láiríre níl mór an chuacht acu. It's more just a stepping stone to become a TD in the future and to sort local issues. Tá sin níos go a stepping stone nó céim chun éirí mar teachta dála sa todhchaí nó chomh sin chun stocha míonaid bena áitsúla, so local issues a réitú. A lot of new words for you there. And again, if you're looking for those new words and confused by them in Irish, mátatu ag lurg na focail sin agus tá siad beginning castadit as Gaeilge. Don't forget there's a PDF of all the most difficult words, the 30 or 40 most difficult words used in every single episode, every single version. Gnáthleagan, it's in Fud Gaeilge over on Patreon as a Gaeilge Weekly or a Learn Irish Online member, patreon.com/learnirishonline. But I digress, Lanham Arai on So Zaragoza the evening there, so we went out for a big meal. He wasn't even running the race in the Euro session on Ross already, but we went out for a big Italian meal, of course, Carbon the night before. That was good, fish single. And then I head back to my Airbnb. Well, we got one drink. I did have the one beer, actually, on Friday, I should say. We bure one agam Aranina, big heart number all. And then Saturday morning, woke up, coffee, a Gaeilge, and then went and read a bit of a newspaper, chill out for a while, waited for him to pick me up, if you may follow or sheep, why, so waited for a lift from him, sheep, S-I-follow-O-B, Gaeilge, and then we headed up to Pamplona, so it's about an hour and a half from Zaragoza, driving hartar or gle o Zaragoza, ag Zaragoza gan notsin an chéador, tá sin rát ag duine ag an Gaeilge. Well, beidir níl say, Goil sé ráite den éigen cosúla sin. So we headed up to Pamplona then, got there about midday, had a bit of lunch, checked into the Airbnb, which is really nice. So we was good on Airbnb, just the latest checkout time I've ever heard of. The checkout time was 1 p.m. the following day. An checkout, an Lord checkout, we say, he in the clug on Lord gun. And he texted me at 1:30 the next day and said, we'll be round at about 3 p.m. to clean. By mid's heart, at 3 o'clock. And will se sin cearclór no will se vigéirí fannacht níos mó. Is that okay, or do you want to stay longer into the day? There must have been anyone staying. He was very sound and very nice and very laid back. So there was even an extra bedroom. Vi shomer sa fresh. It's an Airbnb, and he just said, if you find someone who whatever wants to come back to this flat and stay in the extra room, they can. It's like, okay, a bit weird, but yeah, sure. It's nice of you. Tá sin sa chilta. So yeah, then the race at 6 o'clock. So 6 o'clock in the heat. Obviously, north of Spain, not as hot. Who's on Shane Dushkart in Spania. Neil say Covte. But it was still 32 degrees. It was the hottest weekend of the year in the north of Spain up until now. If you samar in Teirseanna is show, agus really an chéad Teirseanna gin Saura anseo, or anseo who's on Shane in Pamplona. It's really the first kind of weekend, proper weekend of the summer up there in Pamplona and up in the north of Spain in general. Who's on Shane Dushkart in Spania. So 32 degrees, quite humid as well. Socht hash, covhma, nor hussy on Ross. And yeah, bit nervous throughout the Jake. So I was thinking, geez, I'm not sure. Like, I've never done a race in this temperature. I know I can finish it, but you never know. So very careful to drink. I must drink 4 or 5 litres of water during the afternoon. Captain Grau make all bits of Karen or Kugeliter. Éasca. Ire on Trinona and eating well, but not eating too heavy. Just make sure it's going to be okay. Just hunting Ukinsa make Kirkalor. And the race was good. I did in the end 1:37.50 half marathon time. So rinne mé sa or one agus 7 is trocha agus 2 seconds. No hartar sin. I should actually check my chip time. Maybe not something to do in the middle of the podcast. Beidir ní sin rud le déanú a lór on fud creile. But you know what? I think actually I might be able to do it as well. I like being able to multitask. Once I get an idea in my mind, snurtá smuoidú agam. Like ima instin, I kind of have to do it there, and then kaime e ieno Zurich on sin. This is the page show on Latnoch, and if I type in Liam Macharm Isaac Liam, there I am. 1:38.07. Oh, so it's 15 seconds later, but I think it was actually 1:37.50. I don't think that's counting the 15 seconds before I got across the line, but that's my excuse. Shin on Leshgale atá agam. And my name is actually listed as Liam O, as opposed to my full name, like everyone else, because when I was signing up for the race, Sus Don Ross. In Spain, everybody has 2 surnames. Suspán tá Rá apellido, fi min Rá, Cale Ascuelga Slina, gach dana. Tás is Zachar mascot on my glavor again, Spanish and shaw, as is Sweenov on sin mBéarla agus Gastrú Guelga. So, because everybody has 2 surnames, I couldn't fill out the form without putting 2 surnames. It said, this is a mandatory field, you have to fill it. I'm like, I only have 1, so what I did is put O as el primer apellido, the first surname, and then Divila, which is, O Divila is my surname, Divili in English. I put that as my second surname, but maybe they only list the O or the first surname in this one, Níl ach an chéad lena acub an so. And I think the guy who won the half marathon was about 1:15, which, by the way, in the with hills and the heat leis na gnick agus an socht do chardze. To put it into perspective, I earlier this year did 1:29 for half marathon run my or is fihní like lap marathon in Show Seville here in Seville. Now that day it wasn't in any way hot, probably 15 degrees or something. Some cool came dig hartar sin. And it's completely flat. Seville, I think, is the flattest half marathon or the flattest marathon as well in Europe. There's no altitude or elevation or anything. It's like 1 meter or something, made or one beds. So it's perfect conditions for a race. Chunilige, intige, furfa, lahai, ross. But this one, I think I was actually in better shape for. I was actually in better shape for me actually form nís far agus for me nís achlí lahai an rostro, but just because of the heat, the humidity, an soaked, 32 degrees, gá chéim is trucha, nor hossimud, probably 29, 28 when we stopped. Arthur Finney feabhas nor stumpmuds or nor chreitnimuds. And the humidity as well, gur sé tash, agus cumala sin, the hills, and part of it was on cobblestones as well. So Seville is the perfect course. That shows you how much the course matters. Because I do think I'm fitter than 6 months ago. Ceapan go mini softly, not sé bhí hin. But maybe I'm also fooling myself. Better will make her dalam a log or an féin nil sam. But either way, it was good. It was good fun. I enjoyed it tough, but got it done for my Déanta. And, you know, as I said, the race is one part of it. But really, the main thing for me is just getting up, going somewhere for the weekend. I like going away for 2 or 3 days instead of going away for a week or 10 days and not Láite and Seachtain, no Céadaoin. I like going somewhere, again, within Spain, where I know the language. Spain is so lucky to live in Spain. Tá deargarm on the vet in Machoni and Shus Spawn, because there's so many places you can go. Madrid, Cordoba, San Sebastian, Bilbao, La Coruña, Vigo, Malaga, Valencia, Alicante, Benidorm, Benidorm, no Marbella, Ibiza, Mallorca, Menorca, Las Canarias, Las Palmas, Tenerife. Tá méid an átrans in an Fortingale chomhpháirtíocht Gibraltar, mar tá Thuaidh dulga Gibraltar. Bit of a strange place, but cool place to see. Áit beagnaín aisteacht, ach well, dar lumsa, in my opinion, or for me, dumsa Uranus, but anybody listening in Gibraltar, it's fair play to you. I actually know a good few people live in Gibraltar. They seem to really enjoy it. Gnáthleagan chúpla duine in a gcónaí at Gibraltar, agus buineann siad sort atmas, but it's a weird place to go into. I'll speak about it some other day on the podcast. It's very lauert faoi láig an eile but I actually think I did now think about towards the end of 2023, the last time I was there, I think I did an episode on it. Ceapan gonnearna my episode air, so you can go back and check that out on the Gaeilge Weekly archives for $1 Whig na archives to Gaeilge Weekly agus éisteacht le sin. But yeah, that was good. And then obviously a pint afterwards, well, a lot of water firstly, and then a pint, and then we headed out that evening chuimid amach an ihe sin on cúpla pianta all agus dinner a bheith agin. And it was enjoyable. It was good. Evening didn't last too long. Near me and leanúint roada, because my body was so tired, and even now my body's still aching. 3 days now after the race, 3 law in on Ross. But it was enjoyable, and then hung around Pamplona. It's amazing how different Pamplona was. Vi sé do chuid céco tifriúil agus vi Pamplona on Dhaoine, because of course when I had been there in 2021, it was still COVID. A lot of things were closed. Spain was very strict. Vi an spán soch tín leis an dín glasú, and so because of that, you know, we were doing a lot of things still, because everybody I think still found a way to do stuff during COVID. Ceapan gach ar daoine óga Uranus, you know, daimsí mud bailach chun rudaí dhéanamh COVID, but we were more so meeting up at people's houses or going to parks or whatever, not going to bars and cafes and restaurants. The arms like Dolgatí Torvina Cafe and the Bígí and the Wayne Rud Marshin. So it was amazing the life in the place. I don't know, is there some festival on this weekend? I know San Fermin, which is the Bull Run Festival, which a lot of people will know by Ceisteanna roll that's starting in 2 weeks or maybe even next week. Ceisteanna tosu young kaikish no better few on Socht Shugan. It's always 7th of July is the big day for that, but it's a week-long party really. So on Socht law meal sin and law is mo like sin really in Laura being say sin Shul or Shacht and umlaw no better need law. Even a few, like a lot of things in Spain, they drag it out, they make it long, and they really enjoy it. Fair play to them, and it's a good way of living life. Is ballach ma a hun on sale or art also hun on sale a yenu. So that was good, and I drove back. Well, my friend drove me back to Zargata on Sunday. An Downach, Human say Mr. Rashka Zargata on Sin. And got the train back 4 hours again. Zargata direct down to Seville. Almost ended up in Malaga, but Yug nor work me in Malaga because I was in the wrong part of the train. But then I realised pretty quickly. I asked her man, he said, don't worry, it's not changing until Cordoba. So you can switch off in one of the stations, Ciudad Real or Cordoba, and get on the Seville part instead of the Malaga part, because at Cordoba it splits. So Scarn say parts of the train, or the first part of the train goes to Malaga and the other part goes to Seville and Chuid. Saying to Seville, but you know what, if I'd ended up in Malaga, sure, feck it, that's life. Sin and Sale is the worst places to end up stuck in, and I could have stayed with a friend or just stayed somewhere the night, had a few beers and then got the bus back up to Seville the morning after. I would have been fine. It would have been lower to lose the bag or something like that. Wadney's mass on mala a chailu in a road marshin. So that was it. That was the weekend. It was really good, really enjoyable. I want to do more of those weekends. The Mayor in East Modes and a Jar shot in Shiniano, like I did last year. Again, long-term listeners of the podcast might have spoken about the Caceres Fleadh I went to last year. So the biggest fleadh in the world, the biggest Irish music fleadh on fleadh Ceol na HÉireann Mó timpeall down Thievum Muid Éireann outside of Ireland is on in Spain. It's on in around a place called Caceres here, kind of halfway in between Madrid and the Portuguese border. Arthur Lavalach idir Tsorán the Ports in Gaeilge, agus Madrid, kind of a small city. It's almost like a big town, really. Cosúla Baile Mór in ot Cahar Bheag. Went there just for, even it was just one night, I think. Drove up about 2.5 hours from Seville, Gá Orgale o Seville. Stayed there for the one night, saw the fleadh and the whole atmosphere of it. Stayed until probably the evening on Sunday before driving back. Don main sin go Tsunola to Dhaoine Riv, Turas on sin on. Yeah, here really shocked 8 to 9 o'clock, 7, 8, 9 o'clock. I want to see more of that. Go away to Malaga maybe for a weekend, or Ciudad Real, Cordoba, still in scene, bit Cordoba, Granada. And it's nice when you go on somewhere where you have the language and you know how things work. I bring ruddy, because been in Spain now for 4.5 years, but there's so many places that I haven't seen. And the more you travel, the more you want to go to different places. Agus Mishag Tashlal Gníos Mó Áitsana to my year Tashlal Gníos Mó Áitsana. And I'd like to stay in Spain instead of just going somewhere on holidays to Greek islands, Ilan. So because cool as that is and as nice as that is, or to Berlin or whatever, and that's nice every so often as well. But to go somewhere where, again, you know what the food is and the drink is, but it is somewhere different from what your own culture is. Tá sé fós ag an am céan áit sagan ar friúil. Oh, níman take Lords for Lochlean or Kirkig or somewhere back in Ireland. So it's nice. It's a nice balance, a good way to travel, for me at least. Ballach ma Huntashtal Arenos. And you might have heard me mention that my internet was gone for the first 2 versions of the podcast. I'll finish on this story. Correct me on scale. So, Beidir Hulashiv on sin grau Maidralín Imiha don Chaid Gnáthleagan sin fud Creile Sho on Tachtan Sho. And it was gone actually, I think even when I did the BHFAD Níos Simplí, this version of the podcast, Ceapam nar rinne me on Lagan BHFAD Níos Simplí on Tachtan Scotsa, it was also gone. It was gone for 5 or 6 days here. Wi-Fi just went, just in my house. It's not, I don't think the neighbours had any issues. Ní cheapan grau ein Aibena ag na vecinos arish tá focal Spanish ag Tathfugan na chósanna on Tachtan Scotsa. And even this week, because it was still gone up until yesterday. I'm recording this on Tuesday, as I always do. Tá make taflu on Morts, mar a dhéanam ag gcónaí leis an lagan dá with the bilingual version. And all throughout, well, I knew it was going to be away for the weekend, so I decided if I can get through Thursday, it'll be gone for the weekend, and you know what, it'll probably be back by Sunday evening. Chance má go mai sharash an sin ar an dánach. And I was there through the weekend, at the back of my mind, ar chulmin scene, explainu. If it's not back, I'm going to have to call customer service. And I speak Spanish. I've been here 4 years. Understand Spanish, no problem. If I turn on TV, unless it's an extreme accent, which, that could even happen in English if someone's a Scottish person with a really, really rough accent. Rough is the wrong word. I shouldn't use that word. But a really tricky accent to understand. Collins don't blast socht zacher, hon tishkent, montashid and even in English that could happen. But in general, if I switch on television now, watch the news, can tell you exactly what's happening, pretty much verbatim. Minulat kadatar shul, biodnak fuckle, almost word for it. So, and I love doing everything in Spanish, or as much as I can in Spanish, and no one's just really speaking English here, unless I'm with my Irish friends. The linn simagum, mBéarla Lawarts, mona will me, cahuama le machords ernacha, and so machords sasnacha, English friends or anything like that. But the one thing I despise doing in Spanish on rud one, just nach fade. Well, it's nach fade them. Tá sé Déanta go minish. I say I can't do it, but I've done it now. Ach an rud agus ní matlam an rud so herbe is to speak in Spanish on like customer support, like to call up a Wi-Fi company or the water company or whatever. Cholach dishka, no cholach the Wi-Fi. Agus like explains to them the problem and organise for someone to come over, especially when something technical like the Wi-Fi go horiha nor vunin say le rud ag an technical cosú leis an Wi-Fi. Oh, it's just a nightmare. Trumley atá ann. But it's actually, I think it's more so the thought of it, like a lot of things in life, cosú le lán ruddy. So say, being to a gairí bortha faoin ruddy seo, faoin the ruddy seo rivray beforehand, but really when you actually do it, it's fine. So yesterday, I plucked up the courage and said, right, it wasn't back by Sunday evening, Monday morning, first thing after ring their line. And I rang them, and the first thing I heard was Pulse uno, para hablar en español. So press 1 to speak in Spanish, agus an sin press 2 to speak in English. And I thought, yes, I can do this in English. The only time, only time I'm happy to do something in English over Spanish here on Tagan or will make Igiri Rudding and in mBéarla in North Spanish. But, I got through to them eventually after 5 minutes on hold. There's cool moment on hold. Agus Jaren on Colleen, hola. I say hello. Jaren say hola. And then I say in Spanish, Knuckles say show on service on Lena on our to mBéarla. Agus Jaren, so isn't this the service or it's a lot of languages going on at the moment in my head. Is this the service to speak English? I basically said her in Spanish. And she goes in Spanish. No, if you want to speak in English, I'd have to get one of my colleagues, Vecharm, Kian, to Mcholachia, all Mototu Igiri Laurts in mBéarla. And I just said, oh, feck it, right, La Romans in Espanol. And it was fine. I don't know what I was worried about because of all the words, and not even all the words, of whatever she asks. I know I can reply to her, explain what I'm trying to get across with the Wi-Fi and the router, but just the thought of it, like smoina fwy rivray. Sometimes I get a bit worried about it, especially if I have a lot of time in my hands to think about it before. It's the worst thing that can happen. Gohriha matal an am agam hun smoina fwy rivray. Oh, that's leis an ruds massa. But it's fine. Technician came over, El Técnico. He was a bit tougher than his hand. Vi session bugley nís jacker on Tishkins. But it was fine. So he got it sorted. Fair play to him. Fair play though. And the insurance back here in the LIO offices in Ifig LIO. And that is it for this week, guys. A bit of a longer episode. Episode no Agron Bígí níos fuide, and the other 2 episodes were even longer on Dháileagan and Fotcail an Teachtain Seo. They were even a bit longer. We see Bígí níos fuide. So if you're looking again to level up, why not try out the Níos Simplí version this week? You might not understand everything. Sure, who says you have to? Just listen to a bit and get it on your ear. A bit less English. Bígí níos mBéarla. Again, me speaking. I probably don't speak Irish in any way faster on the Níos Simplí version. You can't make Laurts like Gaeilge níos líofa no níos tapúla. Salagan Níos Simplí in the Níos Simplí version. I just don't say this stuff in English as much. So who knows? Might not be much more tricky for you guys. Chance nach mai sé wad níos jackra tíbse. That is it. Thank you very much for listening, guys. As always, load of other stuff available. LearnIrishonline.com, patreon.com/LearnIrishonline. Check the description of this podcast. It explains everything. I won't bore you with it now. Nime hon lads ran a chur orv Kanish. Gurmi the Maggie, Laura may live on Teachtain Seo. I'll speak to you guys next week. Thank you very much. Goodbye and God bless. Slán agus Beannacht.